Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharya Nirvisesa Sunyavari Paschatya Satari. I think I'll do kirtan later, right? And we only have an hour now. Correct?
If anybody needs a notebook or a pen,
take it away, Jose. Krishnabadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavari Paschatya Satarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. I've heard about Simhachalam from the other devotees. Of course, I'm in America, so I generally haven't spent a lot of time in Europe, so that's why I've never been here. I usually would just go to London, and then off to India, and then back from India to London, and then Natika Chandra forced me to go to Slovenia. Chaitanya Dasi forced me to go to Croatia. Govinda Dev forced me to come here. I've been forced to go to Latvia, so. And if I've learned anything in life, it's this. Don't fight with a woman because you always lose. And life is easier just going along with them. So here I am. You can thank them for it. About 20 years ago, I thought it would really be good to focus on seminars, workshops, and retreats where we could spend more time discussing one point and practicing applying that point. Because I always felt in Bhagavatam class, you get a theoretical understanding and you have some questions and class is over. And a lot of times you're just getting started, right? Something comes up and it's like, oh, we have to stop. It would be nice to continue. So I thought, well, if we do workshops and retreats, we have hours and hours and hours. And what I've noticed from doing this is that sometimes you can't really understand something well or put into practice unless you uncover some layers in your own consciousness. And uncovering those layers takes time. You learn something, think about it, reflect, try to practice it. Then you go back to it, learn a little more about it, reflect, discuss, practice, and you continue doing that. And then you're able to get to a place that you wouldn't get by going to the same amount of classes 1 hour a day that you could get just by taking one topic and going hour after hour. So then I thought, the main thing we do in the movement, of course, is chant. So I thought, well, I should try to do courses on chanting. And I began. But by Krishna's arrangement, I was asked to do a japa retreat that Satchidananda Swami was scheduled to do, but he was ill and he couldn't come. And so the organizers asked a few of us. So I started learning about how Maharaj teaches, and then we got to do some together, and then I began developing further on my own in similar ways and some slightly different. And the last time I saw Maharaj in Alachua, he said, Mahatma Prabhu, you must do these japa seminars everywhere. You must do that. All right, so here I am. That was about a year ago. So maybe almost for 20 years I've been doing it. And when you are able to teach one thing 10 times, 20 times, 30 times to 20 devotees, 50 devotees, 100 devotees, 300 devotees, one time online, 1,500 devotees, you get feedback. You understand very clearly what are the obstacles devotees are facing. And you get to teach them how to deal with the obstacles, and you test how your teaching is working. What's working, what I say this and it works, I say that, it's okay. I say this, doesn't seem to make a difference. So over the years I've streamlined how I teach about japa, and a lot of things I don't teach because I don't feel they're as important as other things, and I want to give more time to the things that are important. So there's a little background. What I do, I do a lot of workshops online and traveling. Maybe 6 or 7 workshops are prominent, and I gradually put those workshops online so everyone can also take them, review them online. And about 2 years ago, I became a little obsessed with a couple of things. That there's a lot of guilt and a lot of shame in religious organizations because religious teachings ask you basically to be perfect or to be something or to try to achieve something that is difficult. Yes? Seemingly impossible, right? Or at least seemingly impossible to do it really well all the time. And I became concerned about this because I would counsel devotees. And devotees would tell me, I feel bad about myself because I'm not doing as well as I'd like to do. And they're having difficulty processing their own imperfections in a way that they could be more accepting of themselves and remain enthusiastic in spite of their own flaws. And that really concerned me. And thank you. In outside circles, especially in Buddhism, at least modern day Buddhism, they had this idea of the compassion. If you only give compassion to others and you don't give it to yourself, then your compassion is not perfect. That's an interesting idea. And so they would talk about self-compassion. And if you know anything about Buddhism, somehow Buddhism got kind of... Buddhism and psychology are kind of very similar, you know. Everybody talks about mindfulness. That's not coming from the psychological world, but they adopted it. It's coming from Buddhism. And this idea of self-compassion, self-acceptance, you'll find it in Buddhism, but you'll also find it in our philosophy, but it's not as obvious, and it's easy to think that we don't have this. But we do. Prabhupada has said things about it. And so I began looking at what Prabhupada said, what our scriptures say about it. And I had already given classes or short workshops on guilt. I've counseled lots of devotees who were dealing with the inability to accept their imperfections and becoming discouraged by it, and also running into this problem in which devotees think Krishna doesn't really care about me. What to speak of love me, he doesn't even care about me, which is not true. And I saw that often when the devotees thought Krishna doesn't care about me, They didn't care about themselves. Because if God doesn't care about you, why should you? Right? And then I saw sometimes devotees would believe that God doesn't care about them, but it would become an excuse. Because if Krishna loves me, number one, it doesn't make sense not to love myself, and it doesn't make sense not to try to love him, because after all, he loves me, so I should pay him back, right? Shouldn't I? But if I say he doesn't love me, then there's nobody to pay back. It's easier to make an excuse for not being Krishna conscious, because he doesn't love me, so there's no obligation there. Like, but if I say God loves you, it's like, oh really? Yeah. How does that make you feel? Oh, maybe I should reciprocate. Otherwise, it's wrong. It's bad. So I saw that going on. Now there are different reasons that it happens, but this question would come up, and it always comes up. Does our psychology affect our spirituality, or do we even need to think about it? And to be honest with you, I don't know why anyone would even ask that question, because we all have minds. It's like saying, does your mind affect you? Of course it affects us. So, like, is it important to understand the nature of your mind? Is it important to understand what are your obstacles? Of course it is. So, I saw so much how our own consciousness, our own psychology could have positive or negative effects on ourselves. So I developed a course in self-care, self-compassion, self-acceptance, self-love. And we did that course, I don't know, maybe I've done it 10 times. And for many devotees, that course completely turned them around. It's like, shoo, and it's like a dramatic effect on their life, where they started caring for themselves more, caring about themselves more, understanding the importance of caring about themselves, and understanding that their practice of sadhana was actually the highest form of self-care that they could execute in their life. And so, after I started teaching self-care, then I thought, to me, the highest form of self-care is chanting the holy name, because it gives you love of Krishna. And how could you care for yourself? What could you do for yourself that's any more loving and caring than to give yourself love of Krishna, or to do what would give you love of Krishna? Does that make sense? Like, if I'm going to care for myself. Okay, I can go to the gym. That's good. Okay, I'm healthy. I can do pranayama, calm my mind down. I can eat an Ayurvedic diet. I can do so many things. I can do, read a book on emotional maturity and, become more emotionally controlled. I can do so many things. But if I give myself love of God, that's definitely the highest form of love. So I began meditating on this, and I started incorporating self-care as in many of the japa workshops as one very foundational element of japa. And because Gopi Gita really wanted me to do something with japa, Hare Krishna, he wanted me to do something with japa. And also I was asking, well, what about self-care? Because I'd been doing these self-care courses and been getting such good results. It was almost like, I don't know if I just want to do japa without self-care. I can't remember. But the discussion was something like that, I think. So then we thought, well, let's do both. Like we'll mix them up. And we'll show the relevance of self-care to japa. And I want to begin with something which came to me, not initially doing the self-care course, but after a while. And I started to think along these lines. If you don't care about something, you're not doing it well. We'll use japa as an example. You ever chanted your rounds and they're really bad? Has that ever happened to you? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being excellent and 1 being bad, they were like minus 108. You ever had one of those days? Prabhu, I've had more than one. Yeah. Can't remember the last time it wasn't like that. So it's interesting because ultimately, if that's what's happening, it doesn't have to happen like that, because we could do something to interfere with the bad japa. Don't you think? Like we could self-correct to some degree. Sometimes it's harder than other times. But we could always do something to make it better. Does anybody disagree with that? Like you have no free will? I mean, some of the scientists say we have no free will. There's a professor at Stanford University, and he's on YouTube, and he's like, we have no free will, it's all chemical process. Sometimes it seems like that, doesn't it? When the mode of ignorance takes over, it seems like, oh yeah, that's it. I can't do anything. It's like downhill from here. You know? And to a degree, that's true. But even in the mode of ignorance, you're still a jiva soul, and a jiva soul is nature, its constitution is that he has free will. Otherwise, if we didn't have free will, what would the difference be between us and a stone? Right? Stone can't go anywhere, we can. We have free will. So, when our japa is at minus 108 on the scale of good to bad japa, and it continues at minus 108 for the next 2 hours, and we do absolutely nothing, it kind of looks like, I don't like to chant. That's what it looks like, doesn't it? I just don't like to chant. I mean, I like kirtan, but I don't like japa. Well, I have some news for you. In case you didn't notice, it is the same mantra. Have you noticed that? Like, it's kind of like saying, I like chapatis on a brass plate, but when they're on a stainless steel plate, I don't like them. I go, why? I don't know. I just don't like silver. It's interesting, right? Isn't it? It's the same mantra. But there's a reason for that, and we will work on that. But I want to make the point and make sure everybody understands it and agrees with it. We could do something. Yes? I mean, if we could go from minus 108 to minus 107. It's not a big jump, but we could do that, right? Yeah. Could turn your phone off, right? You're tired, you could stand up. You could read something about the holy name and then get back to it. You could do something, right? You could get a stick and hit yourself in the head. No, not a stick. It has to be a broomstick. That is the civic succession. A broomstick or a shoe. But we don't know if the shoe is, does anyone know? Is it the shoe in the morning or the shoe because it's in the morning the shoe, in the evening the broomstick, or a broomstick? No, you have to find out before you do it. Ridananamar said he was in a temple and they had a line and a shoe. And I don't know, this must be a shoe at night. And at night, before they go to sleep, pass the shoe. You know, sometimes I joke, like, you know, some temples are fanatic, devotees are fanatic, you know, I joke. Right? And the further you go east, the more fanatic it gets. But then I realized that the most fanatical devotee in ISKCON today is just a little tiny nothing compared to the fanaticism we had in the early days of the movement. It's true. We were like off the charts fanatic. So I could do something. I could find an old shoe and beat my head. I could do something. Does anybody disagree? Okay, we all agree we're Jiva Tattva. That's good. That helps. Okay. So here's the question that I pondered, and I want you to ponder. If I could do something, why don't I do anything? You know, those 16 bad rounds, you know about that? The first one's bad, the second one's bad, the third one's bad, the fourth one, the fifth one is even worse. You know, and it's like, it's not getting better, it's maybe getting worse. Have you ever asked yourself or wondered, like, why didn't I do anything about it? Have you ever asked yourself that question? It's too depressing a question to ask, right? All right, if you haven't asked that question, I would ask you to ask yourself that question now, or I want to discuss that. Because this is, I think, the key of the connection between japa and self-care. If I were to ask you why you didn't do anything, you might say, I'm lazy, right? Does that come to mind? Lazy, yeah, I'm lazy. And okay, lazy in relation to japa means I'm lazy with japa. I'm a lazy person, so I chant lazy japa. Or I don't like to chant, or I don't know how to chant properly, I tried, it doesn't work, you know, something. We'll have some rationale, right? I don't care. I guess I don't care about my japa. Ever feel like that? I guess I would chant better rounds if I did care, right? Wouldn't I? To begin this seminar, I want to offer another answer to this question, which I discovered from teaching the self-care workshop, which I didn't fully understand until I taught it. So I'll answer this with a question. If you cared more about yourself, if you cared more about your spiritual advancement, if you took care of yourself better, would your japa be better? How do I say that? Ya? Ya odo ya? Oh. Ya odo ya. Oh, I say ya odo nix. Nich? Nix? Nai. Nai? Ya odo nai? Yeah. If I cared more about myself, me as a spirit soul, I care about me, my purification, my relation with Krishna, would my rounds be better? In case you don't know the answer, it's yes. You understand well. Sometimes you'll see a devotee, they're like my age, and all of a sudden they're like, I'm going to the gym every day, like 3 months later they're like running upstairs, like shoveling snow, and like, wow, what happened? For the 3 years before that, they could hardly get out of bed, right? And so we have this saying, when you're sick and fed up with being sick, then you do something, right? So oftentimes what happens is a person will realize that I'm not taking care of myself, I don't feel well, I'm not performing well, thinking well, and you just hit this point, I have to take care of myself. Right? This is just it's like my duty, this doesn't make sense. I have to care for them. And so then all of a sudden they're like, fit and trim, and you give them all this prasadam. No, I don't eat that. Don't you like it, Prabhu? No, I like it, but I don't eat it. It's just like there's like all this care about their health. And for many people in that situation, they could never do that if you just try to convince them that, well, if you don't eat this, it's better for you. And if you drink a lot of water, it's good. And if you exercise, it's good. Like, yeah, I know. But what happens? It's just information, right? I know you're right. Don't tell me. I don't want to hear it. Why? Because I know you're right and I'm not going to do it. And it's just depressing to hear. Do you ever feel that way in a Bhagavatam class? Like, why am I sitting here? I'm not going to do anything he says. It's just making me feel bad because I know I'm not going to do it. So there's that little change there. Like, I need to take care of myself. And all of a sudden, look at this person who was not very active and energetic and kind of slow and lazy, and it's like changed. The same thing with our Krishna consciousness. If you cared more about yourself, would you care more about your japa? If you don't know the answer is yes. The answer is not yes, the answer is of course I would. Right? So I told the devotees in Cologne, how do you say it in German? Köln? Köln. How did it become Cologne? Because that's the English name. Because they make cologne there. Because the French people only bathe once a month or something, and they had to use cologne so they didn't smell bad. Is that it? No offense to you. She doesn't think she's the body. She's a Brahmin, so it's okay. Is that the origin of cologne and perfume? Yeah. Yes. So I was telling the devotees in Cologne that as a teacher, when I do japa workshops, I help devotees by showing them the proper attitude and feeling with which to approach the holy name. Proper mood, connecting with what it means. How to take the theory, the ideas, the tattvas, and translate them into emotions. Like, Krishna, please engage me in your service. That's a tattva, I'm a servant, right? But how do you feel that when you're chanting? So we do things like that. And I do that if we have a workshop. A lot of workshops will start Friday night, they'll go all day Saturday, all day Sunday. And then Sunday night, there's a doubt in a lot of devotees' minds. We've had Friday night and 2 really good days of japa. So usually if you've been to japa retreats or workshops, that's usually where you chant your best rounds. And it's quite special. And so by Sunday night or whenever it's going to be over, there's a fear. What do you think the fear is?
To not be able to keep it up.
Exactly. It was good this weekend, but when I go back home...
Continue. You can continue like this.
How can I continue? I'll go back to my miserable life. My miserable job. And I won't be able to get up early enough to chant my rounds. And when I chant, I'll be thinking about my job. So here I am. I just spent 3 days, giving everything I have, non-stop, all day. Not considering that sometimes I give Bhagavatam class, go all day in the seminar, and then do an evening program in someone's house. So it's like going, giving, and then it's Sunday night, and I'm looking at everybody, and I said, I think we need a poster of me, my hand in my bee bag, pointing like this and saying, Mahatma is watching you. I think that maybe that will ensure that after today you'll continue chanting well. So, as I understood what self-care is, and as I practiced self-care, and as I helped other devotees practice self-care, and as I saw how it was transforming them, then I put this connection together. If devotees in this seminar leave the seminar with more of a consciousness of self-care, they'll be more inclined to apply what they learned in the workshop because they care. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. So I stopped telling devotees that the reason you may not follow through is because you don't care enough about your japa, which seems to be like, well, obviously that must be the reason. I said, no, it's not the reason. It's not the fundamental reason. The fundamental reason is you don't care enough about yourself to care enough about your japa. You want to make a t-shirt? I don't care enough about myself to care about, and you can fill in the blank. You can have like changing letters every day. Japa, be healthy, to have a good relationship. It's just fill in the blanks. Isn't that interesting? So then I realized if I could get the devotees to care more about themselves, their japa would get better. And here's another theory. What if I didn't even teach japa, but I just taught self-care? I think automatically, if devotees embodied self-care and embodied the conception that chanting the holy name purely is the greatest self-care you could give because that gives you love of God, that's basically all they'd need. That alone could be effective in improving their japa without understanding anything else. Now, we should understand other things because you can practically manifest your self-care and japa when you know how to chant better. But I wanted to start with that because that shows you how we're going to connect japa to self-care. What I would like you to do tomorrow morning, if you can, is think about this. At japa time. And I have a little mantra for you. In our self-care workshop, we did a beautiful exercise, one of the most beautiful exercises that exist this side of Brahmaloka. And after we went through all the work, all the topics, all the exercises, we come to an exercise towards the end of the workshop. And the exercise says, I love myself too much to allow myself to, and you fill in the blank. And in this case, the blank would be, I love myself too much to allow myself to chant bad japa. So I'd like all of you to think like that tomorrow before you begin your chanting. I love myself too much to allow myself chant bad japa. You may want to write that down so you remember, or put it on your phone, or tattoo it in your mind, write it on your arm. And we'll do a little experiment. I'm not going to tell you a lot about how to improve your japa, because this is an experiment. I want to see how effective this is going to be. And so we can talk a little more about self-care, but when we allow ourselves to chant bad japa, I think we all feel on some level, whether it's conscious or not, I'm actually cheating myself right now. Do you ever feel like that? I'm chanting my rounds, I'm not concentrating, I'm just getting them done. Because in the moment, it's easier to chant bad rounds because you don't have to make any effort. So if you're a bona fide lazy person, chanting bad rounds is like, it's the way to go, Prabhu. You just get them done. Blah, 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 shnik, ram, ram, and you just, dance around, whatever. You're just like, no effort to actually hear, to pray, to feel, to appreciate the holy name. Just get it done. We've all done it. It's easy, right? Put on your favorite kirtan. Put a video on, it really gets bad, a Krishna video. I hope it's a Krishna video. Yeah. Hare Krishna. We've all done that. And I believe that while we're doing that, on a subtle level, we know it's wrong. And we feel bad. What does that mean? That means we have a problem. That we are willing to do things that are bad for ourselves. And we know it. And we continue to do it. Isn't that a problem? Don't you think? That's kind of like Hare Krishna. It's really something we all need to confront. Krishna says in the Gita, and we always quote this verse, the mind can be the friend or the enemy. We're quoting the verse, and that morning we had horrible japa, and the mind was the enemy, and we're not even consciously thinking like that. That's what Krishna means, the mind is the enemy. No, that's what he means. You just cheated yourself. The mind is the enemy. What does it do? It deceives you, it cheats you. It prevented you from improving, and you could have improved, and you're feeling bad that you're not improving, and nothing happened. That is the enemy. That's one of the biggest enemies to our spiritual advancement. Have you ever been in that situation and this little voice or this big voice or medium-sized voice or this hurricane said, I don't care? You ever heard that voice? All right, we'll ask it another way. Have you ever not heard that voice? I got to ask negative because my questions are all about embarrassing you, so no one wants to raise their hand, right? So if I ask it the other way, we get 100% buy-in and no one had to raise their hand. Has that ever not happened to you? Raise your hand if that never happened to you. Okay, yeah, so we're all one. How do you say this is not good in German? Nicht gut. Das ist nicht gut. So when I was contemplating doing a course in self-care, I kept asking myself, where does this I don't care come from? What's the origin of that? Because if I could root out the I don't care, that could solve multiple problems. Because then, whenever I was lazy or not doing something well, I could just pull the I don't care voice out, put in the I do care, and everything would get better. Just like that. Ta-da! 1, 2, 3, better. Right? So we came up with this exercise, I love myself too much to allow myself to blank, because we wanted to replace the I don't care with the I do care. And so that, and then at the end of the workshop, we asked devotees, if you actually cared more, how would your life be different? And then devotees I was amazed, they were amazed, of all the things that would change in their lives if they just cared more. Do you remember? that exercise? It's like, well, if I cared more, I would stop doing this. If I cared more, I'd be doing this. And it's pretty much like everything you want to do, you do, and everything you don't want to do, you wouldn't do if you cared more. And so, like, who would have ever thought? I didn't even know that when I developed the course, that's what it was, that powerful. And then, last year I was in Australia, and a disciple of mine who is a professional in counseling, he's actually a professor, he teaches master's students in counseling. And he also spent many years in helping people with addictions. And he periodically gives talks on addiction. And he was giving a talk, and I was listening to it. And he said something I didn't know, and this is really, really powerful. He said that one of the cures for addiction is self-care, self-love. That's one of the cures for addiction. Because obviously you're destroying yourself. And if you had a little more self-love, how could you destroy yourself? You couldn't. But in a similar way, every day I chant bad rounds, what happens? Pretty much.
All day is bad.
I'm destroying myself.
I'm destroying myself. At least, if we don't want to be so negative to say, I'm destroying myself, at least we could say, I'm not getting what the holy name gives. I'm depriving myself of the nectar and the purification that the holy name gives by not chanting properly. So I'm really cheating myself, I'm really depriving myself because I don't care. So therefore, I love myself too much to allow myself to chant bad japa. Love of Krishna exists in His holy name. That's how Krishna gives it. Our relation, there was a lot of talk in Prabhupada's time, maybe not a lot, but some talk about Siddha Deha, a mantra, Siddha Pranali, mantras that would give you perfection. And Prabhupada said different things, but the main gist of what he said was the Guru can reveal, the holy name can reveal. So there's an interesting verse. I believe it may be in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Sanatana Goswami says, the holy name is the greatest is the greatest wealth, something like the greatest wealth or the greatest jewel in Krishna's treasury. It's the most valuable. I think he said it. It's the most valuable thing Krishna has is the holy name. Think about that. That's interesting, right? What's the most valuable thing? Well, you could say Radharani would be most valuable, or maybe Balaram, or Vrindavan. Sanatana Goswami is saying the holy name is the most valuable thing Krishna has. Wow. If it's the most valuable thing he has, it must be the most valuable thing we have. Yes? So I thought, why is the holy name so valuable to Krishna? And I thought, well, if we chant the holy name, it will develop love for Krishna. And what does Krishna want more than anything? He wants our love. So the holy name is so valuable to Krishna because it causes us to love him. And you read Bhagavatam, you'll see Krishna's not satisfied until all his devotees love him. Until everyone loves him, he's not satisfied. So now if we have something that can give us love, something which can bring us back to Krishna in one life, something that Krishna values more than anything, and if Krishna is waiting for us, begging and pleading in the Gita, please come back to me, then what happened? Krishna Govinda. Then, and we don't, and what happened? There's
One set of speakers.
Oh, okay. Then and we don't take it, then what are we doing to ourselves? You know what we're doing to ourselves? I don't know if I want to make you feel bad at night, but it's not that late. So there's still a few hours before you go to sleep. So you probably won't have nightmares, I hope. You know what Prabhupada said we're doing? It's way worse than we're an enemy. The mind's an enemy. It's way worse. Prabhupada said, you are committing spiritual suicide. Wow. Prabhupada said, you are engaged in acts of self-hatred. Whoa, I'm hating myself. Like nobody would think they're hating themselves. Generally, right, in ordinary course. Prabhupada said, you have the opportunity to develop love of Krishna, and you don't fully take advantage of it. You're killing yourself, you're hating yourself. And I think, although that's heavy, I think it's actually healthy to think that way. Because I'm either destroying myself or loving myself. Like, so which one do I want to do? Because if I'm not loving myself, okay, maybe I'm not destroying myself per se, but I'm not taking advantage and nourishing myself the way I could. And if I actually care about myself, I would do that. Now, let's, like any of you who are parents, you all want your kids to be Krishna conscious, right? And sometimes you tell your kids to do things you don't even do, right? Because you want them so much to be Krishna conscious. You should do that. That's not good for you. Do this. Come in the temple. We're going to chant. Sit down with us. Pay attention while you chant. And then we just go. Yeah. So it can be helpful to understand that sometimes what I want for others, I don't even do myself. Like there can be psychological reasons for this also, where we don't feel we deserve, but it's okay to feel that you don't deserve. If it's a theological point, but it's not okay if it's a psychological point, because the psychological point is the stumbling block. I don't deserve Krishna's mercy. Who does? Right? Okay, that's, Mahaprabhu is giving it to everyone. But to think I, as one individual, don't deserve it because I'm unlovable, no, that's not true. You don't have to be lovable to be loved by Krishna. He loves you anyway. Wow, that was easy, right? Krishna loves us not because we have to be lovable or have to do anything to get his love. He loves us because that's what he does. That's who he is. I give you $1 million. And you're like, why are you giving me $1 million? Because I have lots of millions of dollars, so I can do it. But I didn't do anything. I know, I just want to give it. But I don't deserve it. I know, I just want to give it. Why would Krishna love me? Because he wants to. He's your father, he does. So I don't deserve it, but he's giving it. Okay, he's giving it. Should I take it? If I give you $1 million, would you take it? Or €1 million? Would you take it?
Sure.
You might say, are you sure you want to give it to me? Can you afford it? And I go, I just inherited $5 billion. This is like nothing. Take it. You're like, $5 billion. Okay, that's like lots of millions there. Okay, so you have $5 billion and there's 50 people in the temple. You could give 50 million, you wouldn't even feel it. Right? There's like nothing. It's like pocket change, right? So you're like, okay, I'll take it. Why do you take it? Even though you feel unqualified. Because the person is willing to give it and you need it. And because you care enough about yourself that you would take this money and use it for your well-being, so you take it. Krishna is giving you love in the form of the holy name. If you ever think you don't deserve it, that's okay, but he's giving it. Don't be foolish enough not to take it because you feel like you don't deserve it. That's all. It makes it more glorious. Like, I give you $1 million because I owe you $1 million. That's not glorious. I give you $1 million because you worked 10 years for my company and helped grow the company like to a $5 billion company. So, I give you the $1 million. You're like, yeah, of course. I deserve it, right? So then it's not like special anymore, is it? He gave me $1 million, but I deserve it, right? But if you don't deserve it, then it's special, right? So you think, I don't deserve it. Great. Keep thinking you don't deserve it. That makes it even more special. It's more mercy because you don't deserve it. Right? Yes? So it's okay. You don't deserve it. But not because you don't ever think you don't deserve it because Krishna doesn't love you. We're Kali Yuga residents. We don't deserve it. But so Krishna is giving this love. It comes in the form of his holy name. You get it. It's transferred to you by chanting properly, hearing, praying, giving your heart to the holy name. And we do this because we want to endow ourselves with the mercy that Krishna is willing to give us. So look at it like this. I come here to Simhachalam and I have something really special. I want to give you something I made, special. And I start giving it out and you're like, I don't really have room for that. Or, yeah, it's okay, what am I going to do with this? How do I feel? I brought 50 of these little lockets, there's like gold-plated, picture of Radhe Shyam, you put them in. Thank you, Prabhu, I don't wear lockets. Give it to your wife. She doesn't wear lockets. How do I feel? Never coming back here again, right? Krishna is saying, here is my love in the form of the holy name. And we say, Krishna, I'm not really into japa. Kirtan, yeah, japa, not my cup of tea. And what does Krishna think? I'm trying to bring you back to Godhead, and you don't even care about yourself. What can I do? I'm giving you love, and you don't even care enough about yourself to take it. Like, I don't know what else I can do. I've made it easy. Just package my love into 32 syllables, 2 hours a day, and end of your life, you come back to me. It's too easy. So these are some things we can meditate on tomorrow morning, like the mercy of the holy name, how it gives love. You can even feel that love when you chant, if you tune into it. How this is Krishna's most valuable gift, and how if I just care a little bit more about myself, or a lot more about myself, my theory is your japa will just get better automatically. And we're going to test this theory tomorrow morning. And when I give class in the morning, we're going to ask, how did the japa go? Did this help you? And some of you may say, I don't know how to love myself. Like that. In the context of japa, you're going to love yourself by trying to chant better and get the mercy. You're going to give yourself the mercy. One time, Vibhuti told me a story. Radhanath Swami gave a class, like one of those 3-hour classes. And, Hare Krishna. Am I supposed to stop now?
You can wind it up.
Yeah, okay. Well, it usually takes me a half hour to wind things up, but anyway. So he gave like a long class. I think it was like 3 hours. Jai Nrsimha Bhagavan. Jai. And so, I believe it was a young girl came up, Indian, and Indians, they know that mercy, you need mercy. And that sadhus can give mercy. So they always ask sadhus, please give me your mercy. So she went up to Maharaj. He said, please give me your mercy. And he said, that's what I just did for the last 3 hours. So it's like, no, I just want that. Don't you have like a little tablet I can just take and I don't have to do anything and the mercy does everything? Well, mercy's not exactly like that. You get mercy, but you have to give yourself you have to digest the mercy you get. You have to process it. Okay, here's the mercy in the instruction. Now you have to understand it, realize it, and practice it, and then you get the mercy. It's like, okay, Prabhu, can you buy me some nuts? I give you the nuts. And you go, so? I go, so what? Aren't you going to open the nuts? It's like, you can open them, right? So you get the mercy. Who's going to open the package of mercy for you? You are. Don't think your guru's going to give you the mercy, open it up, and put it in your mouth. So Krishna is giving you the mercy. Mahaprabhu is giving us the mercy. Prabhupada is giving us the mercy in the holy name. We have to unpackage it. We have to open it up. We have to eat it. We have to utilize it. We have to show mercy to ourselves. I always say that when people say, please give me your mercy. I say, I will pray that you will be merciful to yourself by taking all the mercy you already have been given. There's like 80 volumes of it, for starters. And like 4,000 lectures and 5,000 letters. And, there's so much mercy. So it's a nice meditation, don't you think? So, do I care enough about myself to take care of myself, to try to give myself mercy? I hope we do. Yesterday in a class, I was saying one of the reasons that I take chanting seriously is because I realize there's so much mercy in the holy name. And I feel desperately that I need mercy. And I feel like I can't let a day go by where I don't get a sufficient amount of mercy. It's necessary for me. And I can get a lot of mercy during japa if I actually do it well. And so it's a nice meditation. There's a lot of mercy available through the holy name if we chant it properly. And so this little idea, be merciful to yourself. Sadhu, please give me your mercy. My mercy to you is that you will be merciful to yourself and you will take and utilize the mercy you've been given. Hare Krishna. So we're going to do an experiment tomorrow. You're all guinea pigs. You're going to sit down and you're going to say, I love myself too much to allow myself to chant bad japa. Or you're going to say, I love myself so much, I'm going to fully take the mercy of the holy name. What do we do now? Questions, comments, or?
We can do questions, yeah.
Okay.
Good, lecture is also good.
The lecture is officially ended. Now it's officially time for questions. I mean, I could speak all night, but... Yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Mahatma Prabhu, for this amazing lecture. And finally, you're here in Simhachalam. We're all very happy.
Very well.
Very well. My question is, sometimes my mind tells me, you can't be all the time attentive. Can you just relax today a little bit?
I think there's truth to that, but there's a way around it. Have you ever tried to be attentive? Like control your mind during japa, like every thought, just bring it back. And by the end of 16 rounds, you're totally exhausted. And you think, wow, that was hard. I don't know if I could do that tomorrow. That's not actually the way it's supposed to be done. That's very artificial. And in one sense, the goal of japa is not to control the mind. I would say the goal of japa is to control the heart, the emotion. Because japa is a prayer. As Prabhupada said, it's evocative. We're saying, O Krishna, O Radha. So we're playing, please give me pure bhakti. Please put me in the mood of a servant, not a master. This master consciousness is killing me for lifetimes. I don't want it anymore. I don't want this maya that I'm master and controller. Please give me the mood of a servant, the consciousness of a servant. That's what we're begging, praying for. So when we say we should hear the mantra, and that's all we say, it's only half of the formula. Because Prabhupada said you should hear yourself chanting sincerely. That's the other half. Right? So hearing means awareness. Hearing means presence. When we talk about mindfulness, being present, if you are here, if there's a sound and you're not hearing it, you're not present to the sound, right? Your wife ever tell you something and you didn't hear it? But the sound, he's like, yeah, I never hear what she says, right? The sound is there. If you're a bona fide man, you hear your wife saying something and you don't hear it. Ladies, don't worry, all men are like that. And it takes them time before they start hearing. I mean, you have to tell them, I'm talking to you, can you hear? Hello, anybody home? So we all know what that's like, right? So when we say hear the mantra, we mean be present. Like, be present to the fact that you're chanting, hear it. But hear yourself chanting sincerely. That's the second half, which transcends your mind. Is it easy to hear the mantra if I'm in the mood of prayer? Yeah, because I'm praying to the mantra. I've got to be conscious of who I'm praying to. I've got to be conscious. Krishna's there in sound and I'm praying to him, so I'm conscious of the sound because that's who I'm praying to. Does that make sense? It's kind of like, if the holy name's an incarnation and I want to pray that incarnation, I have to hear it and be conscious. But I don't have to worry about the mind, because when I go deeply enough in prayer, asking Krishna for help, or whatever I need help with, the mind, the nature of emotion is it shuts the mind down. It shuts the thinking down. To the point, if you have a high emotional experience, your mind, you won't even know who you are. Your mind shuts off. Have you ever had that experience? Like you're so stressed or nervous. They're like some devotees at initiation. You know, they forget the four principles because their mind shuts off in high emotion. So you will notice that if you go into the mood and meaning and prayer of the holy name, it shuts your mind off because the mind is not necessary. And if the mind kicks in, then the spiritual mind will kick in, where the mind is aligned with your chanting, so it's not like you have to control it, it's just helping you. And I think this is extremely important because of what I said before. If every day I go and my japa is kind of artificial and I'm just trying to control my mind, after a while, it's so hard I just stop doing it. Like you said, it's like I need a break. It's just too hard. Whereas if you go and connect with what the holy name means, it's a different experience. You won't feel drained. You'll feel like I could just keep chanting. And then the next day when you chant, when you sit down, it's like, oh, this is going to be sweet. It's not like, oh no, I have to control my mind. That's my experience, and I think it's really important to understand this because often when we talk about chanting, we just talk about the first half, but it's just be present. And The first japa retreat I went to, Rabindra Swarup Prabhu said that when you chant, you don't actually need your mind. And when he said that, I thought, well, that's a big relief. I'm trying to control my mind. I don't even need it to chant. Because really you need your heart, not your mind. What does the mind do? The heart is the subtle aspect of the mind. And the more gross aspect of the mind is just thinking. So you know what it's like when you're thinking. You're not present because you're thinking of something else other than what's in front of you, right? That's what thinking does so often. Thinking takes us out of the present into some other place that we're thinking about. And so we all do that during japa. We're chanting and then we start thinking about, so we can think about whatever, so many things. Right? Hare Krishna. When I go back to America, I'm going to get there. Monday, if I get back on Monday, then Tuesday I'm going to do this, and I got to make this appointment because I'll be leaving in a week. And by Thursday, I got to call my secretary. So what's happening? There's this sound going on, Hare Krishna, Krishna, and I'm making that sound, and I'm hearing it. But I'm in my head thinking, so I'm not hearing it, and I'm not even aware I'm saying it. Have you ever heard a devotee chant something like this? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare. You ever heard that? Or Hare Krishna, 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 Ram, 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 Hare, 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 Hare. And you're wondering, Prabhu, you don't, Maha Mantra is 32 syllables, not 68. You're not hearing, or it's 32, not 12. Anytime somebody says, I chant my rounds in 3 minutes. Like, yeah, really? Not the 32 syllable mantra. The 16 syllable, yeah. You could do the 16 syllable in 3 minutes. That one you can do in 3 minutes. So, what has happened is that we've gone in our mind and we're totally unconscious of what we're doing. That's the problem. Unless your mind is engaged in thinking of Krishna in a congruent way that aligns with the mood of japa, it goes off and you're chanting japa and you're not even present at all. So let's say you're talking to me and I'm off somewhere thinking. And after you talk to me, I say, what? How do you feel? I was like, what's the use of talking to you? Right? You're like, I didn't hear anything you said because... So we don't want to deal with Krishna that way. And so, if you connect with the meaning and mood of the mantra, which Krishna, let me serve you, let me be pure, so many meanings are there, and you actually feeling it, the mind, the thinking, it doesn't work with feeling. You get one or the other, and you'll notice something. If you get in the mood of feeling when you're chanting, and you go out of that mood, you'll immediately notice you're thinking now. You're back to the, what am I going to do later mood. And there's no feeling, Hare Krishna. You disconnected completely from your chanting, and you're just, as devotees often say, my japa is background music for my thoughts. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, yes. Thank you very much. But then would you say that if we chant with the heart, as you say, that we can always chant, really, like speaking practically from your own experience, that you can always every day chant full on, with a full heart, full attention?
Mm-hmm. Well, the answer is yes, if you think you can, and no, if you think you can't. I would never want to think I can't do something that I want, that I need to do, because the answer is that it takes effort. So yes, I can if I'm willing to put in the effort. Yes, I can. And okay, some days, okay, this is the answer. You'll be satisfied. I don't know if you like that other answer. You'll be satisfied with this answer. The answer is a qualitative yes if you put in the effort. So it's not always going to be perfect if you put in the effort. Some days it's like you ate too many pakoras last night. It's just, your mind's in rajas, or you're still tired or something. It's not working, but it'll be better than normal. That's the point. If you make the effort to do that, it may not always be like I'm saying it can be, but it'll be better. Your bad japa will probably be as good or better than your good japa now. That would be good, right? So, the inertia of the material world, the inertia of the mode of ignorance, it's pushing us down. So when we chant japa, we can't just sit down and chant and think everything's going to go fine, right? Because after 6 rounds you start talking. Or 8 rounds, isn't it? Mm-hmm. If you, I have done research. You want to hear my research? Mm-hmm. My research is that I go to a lot of temples. And I chant with the devotees in the morning at a lot of these temples. And after an hour, 50 minutes, 55 minutes usually, the energy in the temple goes, ba-doo! Have you noticed that? Devotees start getting up, going out, start talking, pulling their phones out. It's like something happened, right? My dear devotees, 6 a.m. is dangerous. If you're at Mangal Artik, 6 a.m. is the danger hour. Watch out. And it happens to me also. It doesn't happen so much. It happened more, but I try to chant well, and it's become more of a habit. But when it becomes 6 o'clock and the energy starts to go down, well, maybe here it's different because the sun doesn't rise at 6. But anyway, everywhere I go, it's the same. So probably similar here. So I have to try harder. Like this is hard. Okay, I can't just do this. It's not that easy. It's 6 o'clock and I'm going to feel all these emotions. Try harder. Now this is like, it's so simple. It's such a simple point. And a lot of us, when we run into an obstacle, it's like, well, it's hard at 6 o'clock and I can't concentrate for more than an hour, and we have all our excuses of why we can't do it. But it would be better if we thought, okay, it's difficult, therefore I need to try harder now. That would be better, wouldn't it? Yes? Yeah? Yeah, good. I have a beautiful story for you. You want to hear a beautiful story?
Yes.
There was a devotee who was weak, and so he wasn't following all the principles. But he was very sincere. So he was trying. Sincere means he was trying, but he was having trouble. So they went to Prabhupada and he said, so-and-so Prabhu is very sincere, but he sometimes falls. He's not always doing well. Prabhupada said things like, well, if you're sincere, you won't fall. And then the devotee said, Prabhupada, he's weak. Never felt like that? Prabhu, what do you expect from me? I'm weak. Oh, okay. Sorry I asked you to wash the pots. Never again will I ask you. I'm weak. And it seems like that's a reality. Well, how come you don't get up in the morning? I'm weak. How come you don't chant well? I'm weak. Why aren't you reading Prabhupada's books? I'm weak. How come you're not following the principles? I'm weak. It makes sense to us on a certain level, because that's what we're experiencing, weakness. So Prabhupada said, and I think this is so important, Prabhupada said, why are you giving in to weakness? In other words, weakness was in the devotee's mind the all-pervasive excuse that you could use for anything to justify failure. Right? I mean, that's a good one, you know. It's like this one teacher said. He said, one of the best excuses is, I'm sick. So I went, oh, I'm sorry. I hope you get better again. Why didn't you do that? I'm sick. Oh, I'm sorry. So this is another one of those like universal panacea excuses. Give the excuse for everything. I'm weak. And when Prabhupada gave that answer, I thought, this is the perfect answer for any difficulty. If you're having difficulty, don't give in to the difficulty, try harder. Does that make sense? Sorry for the bad news, everyone. You probably just wanted a pill that you could take. Instant good japa. Yeah. Yes.
Prabhu, it's not a question, it's more doubt, kind of.
Okay.
When you say self-love, to love oneself, Prabhupada says we should love Krishna. So self-love, one might think it's kind of egoistic.
Yeah, it could be egoistic. There's a statement, I can read it to you tomorrow. Yeah, I don't have my computer here.
Tomorrow is the doctor.
Oh, all right, I'll tell you today. Prabhupada said, I am part and parcel of Krishna. So loving myself is loving Krishna, because I'm a part of him. So by loving... And of course, when we talk about love as devotees, we're not talking about selfish love. We're talking about nurturing ourselves so that we can love Krishna. So we can't conceive of pure selfishness, because here's a good example. One rich person said something that I never thought of before. He said that if you get power or money, it will just make you more of what you already are. So if you're a generous person, you're a good person, and you get wealth, what are you going to do with it? You have more to give. You're going to give more. If you're a bad person, you'll hoard it, right? So it's the same in Krishna consciousness. If I'm trying to love Krishna and I take care of myself, the more I take care of myself, the more that gives me energy and power and proper consciousness to serve and take care of others. So it's always, my self-care is never disconnected from the care of other people. It's always, that's the reason I care for, one of the reasons I care for myself, so I can help others. And the other reason I care for myself, you may know this story in which Prabhupada was asked, does a spiritual master take the karma of the disciple? And Prabhupada said, yeah. And Prabhupada, does he have to come back for the disciple? And Prabhupada said, yes. Don't make me come back. And so Prabhupada wants all of us to go back to Godhead in this lifetime. You take the Krishna consciousness, follow this process, chant 16 rounds, you'll go back to Godhead in this lifetime. If I try to do that so that I can go back to God, I'm actually fulfilling Prabhupada's order. So even that selfishness is service, because it's to fulfill his desire. So for us as devotees, everything we do is in the mood of service to superiors. So if the superior says, chant good rounds, then I'm going to be very selfish about that. If the superior says, get good association, I'm going to be very selfish to get good association. If the superior says, you should get Mahaprasadam, I'm going to make sure I get Mahaprasadam. I'm going to do what they say, even if it's selfish, because it's in service to their cause. So those are two angles of how devotees are never selfish. Because we're always under the directions of higher authority and we're always trying to serve with whatever we get. And if we get power, that's great. More power, we can do more service. Is that okay? Sometimes, sometimes I get so busy, it's hard, it's a little difficult for me. So sometimes people will help me. I have a secretary, can you book this ticket for me? I don't have time. Can you answer this email? I don't have time. Or people will do things for me, clean my clothes, do this and that. And sometimes I feel like I should do all that myself. But then I think, well, if I do that, there's something else that's more important than washing my clothes that I could do that the person washing the clothes can't do. So let them do it. So it's like power in a sense, but it helps. It's like I'm being selfish, but it actually helps me to be more selfless, to give more time to devotees.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
My question would be also about love.
Yes.
How do you even start when you don't even know what love is?
Jai Nishmadev. What a great question.
In my personal feeling society is, it is written that love in the material world is just a perverted version of love that's spiritual.
I'll give you a definition of self-love. So it'll make the answer very simple. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are 6 principles of surrender. Sharanagati. The first principle is do what is favorable. Like, do whatever you do, it should be good for your spiritual life. That means whatever you do materially, it should be good for your spiritual life. Whatever you do emotionally, psychologically, physically, socially, it should all be beneficial for your spiritual life. What to speak of what you do spiritually. The second principle is avoid anything that's harmful for your spiritual life. So, I'm not going to do this because it's not good. I'm going to do this, even though I don't want to do this because it's good, I'm going to do it. And I'd rather do that, but I'm not going to do it because it's bad for me. That's self-love. That's how you love yourself, by following these 2 principles, these first 2 principles of surrender. So now look at your life and think at every moment, every choice you make that choice by considering what will be good for you and how you can avoid doing something, or avoid doing something that's bad for you, and you're loving yourself. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we can bring that back to japa. I'm chanting bad japa, right? This is not good for my spiritual life. If I want to be surrendered, I should chant japa in a way which is good for me. I had a realization, though. I'll broaden this answer because this is important. My wife is a marriage counselor, and we did a couple of workshops on marriage, and we just recently did a workshop on how to find a partner, how to find the right partner, and how to know who the wrong partner is if you've found the wrong one. How to find out they're wrong before you get married. Because you will find out they're wrong if they are after you get married. That's more complicated. So, I was in the marriage mood, like what makes a good marriage, because we're preparing the course, we're talking about it, and we try to practice it ourselves, because we're teaching it, and if we don't practice it, it's a paradox. So we try to practice it as best we can. So, I don't know what I was doing. Maybe I was teaching a course in self-care, and I thought, if I create a good relationship with my wife, that's good for me. Because good relationships are always good for us, and bad relationships are always bad for us. So then I thought, well, self-care would be creating a good relation with her, and creating a good relationship with all devotees. That would be self-care. So that's like, It doesn't look directly like self-care, but it's coming back to you. That how you treat others affects you. So if I treat others well, if I try to have good relationships, then I'm actually caring for myself because those good relationships help me. So that just broadens the perspective of what's favorable and unfavorable, right? A lot of devotees say, should I do this or should I do that? And then the answer is, will that be helpful for your bhakti? Like sometimes that's all you have to, and you're trying to make a decision, you just have to ask that question. Is this going to help my bhakti or not? Should I get this job? Well, how many hours? 13 hours a day. How many days a week? 6. Okay, how many hours to get there and back? 2. That's 15 hours a day. That's 90 hours a week. Okay, is that going to help your bhakti or hurt your bhakti? Probably hurt it, but maybe you have no money. And you've worked this job for 1 year, you're set, you can buy a house, this and that, and then get a normal job. So you might say, I'm going to make a sacrifice. I know it's going to hurt my bhakti, but it's also going to hurt my bhakti to not get this job. So you weigh the pros and cons. Because don't think that something material doesn't affect your bhakti. It does. Right? Those who say I don't care about money, they're always thinking about money because they never have it. Yeah? That was my realization. I was like sick of thinking about money, so I decided if I just make enough, I can stop thinking about it. So I thought, like for the first time in my life, I thought about making money. I never thought about it. So, and you might say, well, how is that helping your spiritual life? Because I can stop praying during japa for money and I can pray for pure bhakti, because now I have money. Right? Something like that. Does that make sense? Yeah, thank you. Yes? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Mahatma Prabhu, I have a question.
Yes.
So this Mahamantra, you said it is a prayer, and we know that it's a prayer, more or less. Is it more a prayer or more some kind of service? Or
If it is service and it is a prayer, but it's a prayer for service. But not as we normally think of a prayer for service. Like, have you ever thought, I have too much service? And you're chanting and you go, why am I chanting? I already have too much service. If the Maha Mantra means, please, Krishna, please engage me in your service, I don't need to chant, I already have enough, right? So, have you ever thought like that? Or wondered, maybe I'll just do 4 rounds today. So, doesn't exactly mean quantity of service. It means more consciousness that I am a servant. That because our material conditioning is I am master and I am controller. Raise your hand if you like to control things. Yeah. And the more you think about how you like to control, the more you realize how much you like to control. Right? I mean, with software we have and phones we have so much control. You want to get a new app. Yeah, let's get a new app. It does this, that, and hit this button, does this, and it's like, wow, more control. And enjoy. Everything I see, I want to enjoy. This is mine to enjoy. So when we're chanting, we're praying to be in the mood of a servant. What is the mood of a servant? I'm not the enjoyer, I'm not the controller. I'm a humble particle of dust at your feet. That's what we're actually praying for. So, you could pray for a certain service, but that's And you could, one of the meanings of the mantra is to be qualified to do the service. Krishna, give me the qualification. But it's all coming from this humility. Help me become a servant. Help me realize I'm a servant. So it is service also. It's Shravanam. I mean, it's Kirtanam. It is service. But it's important to understand what we're actually praying for. We're really praying for humility. That I'm a humble servant. Please place me as a particle of dust at your feet. That's really what we're praying for. Because unless our mood is, how can I serve? I see you and I think, how can I serve? You see me, you think, how can I serve? Unless that's our mood, we'll stay here in the material world. As long as we want to be. I see you and I go, how can she serve me? You see me, how can he serve me? That's our conditioning. So we're praying, Krishna, please give me the mood of a servant. And that is how we will love Krishna and how we will go back to Godhead. And we can't go any other way. There's no other door. There's like when you go back to Godhead, it says, those who are proud enter this door, and those who are humble enter this. No. You enter the proud door and boom, you fall back down. You can't go into the spiritual world with pride. You have to enter those who are humble. You go in that door and it takes you into Braj. But the other door, sorry, better luck next time. So it's important to understand that. Right? That that's like, we become devotees, but we don't always realize what we're actually trying to do. We are, you come to the temple the first day, and you ask me, well, what are you guys trying to do here? And say, well, we're trying to become a piece of dust at Lord Chaitanya's feet. And I'm like, get me out of here. But you don't realize that until you come and you go to class, and after a while it's like, ding, it dawns on you, like, I can't be God anymore, at least not in this temple. And if I want, in this organization, and if I want to be with the devotees, I have to face the reality that I can't be God. I have to try to be humble. Like, who wants to be humble? Like, we had a show when we were kids, and these 5-6-year-old kids would go on the show, and the moderator would talk to them, ask them questions. They'd say stupid things that are funny. And one of the questions was, what do you want to be when you grow up? So it was like, I want to be a policeman. I want to be a fireman. I want to be in the army. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a particle of dust at the feet of Radha Krishna. Call up the parents. I think their son needs to see a mental health professional. There's something seems to be wrong with him. But, sorry for the bad news, if you hadn't realized this yet, but the goal of Krishna consciousness is not to be God. It's to be a particle of dust at God's feet. And that's what we're praying for. And if you like, the 5th verse of Shishastakam, O son of Nanda, somehow I've fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up and place me as an atom at your feet. That mood is such a beautiful mood with which to chant japa. It's just like, I'm fallen here, I've fallen here, I'm helpless, and please purify me so I can have the bhav, the nature, the mental mindset and heart of a tiny servant. And it's only when we have that particle of dust in consciousness we'll be happy. To be number one, we're not going to be happy. Guaranteed. You don't believe me? Go out and become famous, and then come back and tell me if that made you happy. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Should we stop now? I think so. Because if we don't stop now, it's not going to stop. Every answer stimulates another question. Okay, so we'll start tomorrow at what time?
At 7:45.
7:45. So tomorrow's Prabhupada's disappearance. How are we going to like figure that one out?
Combine.
Maybe tomorrow
Bhakti
morning.
Bhushan Maharaj is here, but he won't come. He's a little bit sick.
Who's here?
Bhakti Bhushan Swami
Oh.
is staying with Akila Prabhu,
Oh, okay.
and but he's a little bit sick, so it's you can incorporate it.
With japa and Prabhupada's disappearance. So. Okay.
At noontime, there's a small ceremony,
Yes.
1 o'clock.
And what about the time Prabhupada left? Are we going to do anything like 7:14 or 7:11, whatever it was?
In the morning or evening?
Evening.
Evening.
Should do something, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
That's when we're going to start the evening, 7:15 or 4.
We were planning, because we have the lecture, we were planning to have at noontime Janilo and Rastakam. So in the evening we could focus on the other part of the program, but we could
What time were we scheduled for the evening to start?
evening 1 hour before, no,
7:15.
Hmm?
7:15 for the evening. We're scheduled the third or fourth part of the seminar. I mean, third session
Yeah.
of the day.
It's 7:15, so if we just do like Pushpanjali to Prabhupada or something, we just start at 7:30. Do you remember what time Prabhupada left? Was it 7:14
I don't know exactly.
or 11 or 17 something? We can find out and just do that and start at 7:30. That would be,
Okay.
that's important. It was the time he left.
Okay, perfect. So maybe we will skip at noon and
Yeah.
we'll at 7:15.
Yeah.
Okay. So we would chant now. Thank you very much for us.
Yeah. You're
Mahatma
welcome.
Prabhu ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada.
So we'll
ki
chant
jai.
shortly the sing of pranam.
What's 7:30?
7:30.
Oh, that was the schedule. Yeah, okay.
He disappeared at 7:30.
Disappeared at 7:30.
I mean, here it says 7:20.
Keep looking. We'll keep looking. We'll take the earliest time we get. Okay.
So we would do now the sing of pranam and then the